The damaged alien ship looked like a broken toy floating in space. Its metal hull was burned black in many places, and pieces of it drifted away like leaves in the wind. Admiral Park Jin-ho watched from the observation deck of Earth's biggest space station as the strange vessel limped toward them. "Sir, the alien ship is asking for permission to dock," said Lieutenant Kim Hana from her control station. Her voice was steady, but Park could hear the worry underneath. In his 20 years of service, he had never seen a ship in such bad condition still flying. "Give them docking bay 7, Park said, "and get our medical team ready. Something tells me they're going to need help." The alien ship was unlike anything in the human fleet. It was long and thin, like a giant insect, with strange wings that folded against its body. As it slowly moved into the docking bay, Park could see deep cuts in its surface where something had tried to slice it apart. Park made his way to the docking bay with a small team of guards and doctors. He had met aliens before, but not many. Earth was still new to the galactic community, and most alien species treated humans like children who had just learned to walk. The ship's door opened with a loud hiss, and thick smoke poured out. Then came the alien. It was tall and thin, standing on 4 legs like a giant praying mantis. Its skin was green and shiny, and it had large black eyes that seemed to see everything at once. But what shocked Park the most was how badly hurt it was. One of its arms hung useless at its side, and green blood dripped from several wounds. "I am Ambassador Velthar of the Ashanti Collective," the alien said in perfect human language. Its voice sounded like wind blowing through metal pipes. "I come seeking aid for my people." "You need medical attention first," Park said, signaling, "to the doctors." But the alien held up its good hand to stop them. "There is no time," Velthar said. "My people are dying, our worlds burn. The Corvan Empire destroys everything in its path, and we cannot stop them." Park had heard of the Corvans. They were a warrior race that conquered other species for sport. The report said they had taken over 12 star systems in the past 5 years, enslaving or killing everyone they found. "How many ships do they have?" Park asked. 60 warships, Velthar replied. "Each one larger and more powerful than anything my people can build. We fought them for 3 months. We lost." The alien's legs shook, and it almost fell. This time, Velthar did not stop the doctors from helping. They gave the ambassador something for pain and began treating its wounds. "We asked the Zephyrian Alliance for help," Velthar continued as the doctors worked. "They said we were too weak to be worth saving. The Crystalline Confederacy told us the same thing. You are our last hope." Park felt a cold weight in his stomach. The Zephyrians and Crystallines were 2 of the most powerful groups in the galaxy. If they would not fight the Corvans, what could Earth do? "Ambassador, I need to speak with my government," Park said. "But I promise you will have an answer soon." 2 hours later, Park sat in a meeting room with the most important people on Earth. The room's big screen showed Velthar lying in the medical bay, sleeping after surgery to repair its damaged arm. "The situation is clear," said Counselor Lee Moran, Earth's top diplomat. "The Corvans have 60 ships. We have maybe 30 ships that could fight them, and most of those are guarding our colonies from pirates." "We cannot ignore this," Park argued. "If the Corvans destroy the Ashanti, they will keep expanding. Eventually, they will reach human space." "That could be years from now," said General Cho Won-sik. "By then we will be stronger." Director Kim Tae-ho of Strategic Command had been quiet during the argument. Now he stood up and walked to the big screen. He was a small man with gray hair, but everyone in the room respected his mind for military planning. "There is another option," Kim said slowly. "We send the 3rd Expeditionary Fleet." The room went silent. Everyone knew about the 3rd Fleet. It was the smallest group of ships in the human Navy, and many people called it the Reject Fleet. It was where the Navy sent old ships and problem officers. "Sir, with respect, that's only 12 ships," said Lee Moran. "And most of them are cargo ships that someone put guns on." "Exactly," Kim replied. "The Corvins expect us to fight like everyone else. Big ships, straight lines, follow the rules. But Captain Yoon Daewon does not follow rules. Maybe that is what we need." Park knew Yoon Daewon by reputation. The man was a good officer, but he had been passed over for promotion many times because he thought differently than other commanders. Some people said he was too emotional, too willing to take risks for people he barely knew. "The 3rd Fleet is not our weakest," Kim continued. "It is our most human. If anyone can surprise the Corvins, it will be them." The vote was close, but Kim's plan won. They would send the 3rd Expeditionary Fleet to help the Ashanti. It was not much, but it was all Earth could spare. An hour later, Park stood with Ambassador Velthar in the medical bay. The alien was awake now, its wounds bandaged, but its eyes still bright with hope. "We will send 12 ships," Park told the ambassador. "I know it is not many, but 12 ships?" Velthar's voice rose in surprise. "But the Corvans have 60. "Yes," Park said, "but they are human ships, and humans do not give up easily." Far away in space, Captain Yoon Daewon stood on the bridge of his ship, the HSS Resilience. The old destroyer was not much to look at. Its paint was faded, and some of its systems made strange noises, but it was his ship, and his crew trusted him. "Sir, we just got new orders," said his communications officer, Petty Officer Song Yoonbi. She looked confused as she read the message. "We're going to fight the Corvin Empire." Yoon smiled. Finally, a mission that mattered. He looked out at the 11 other ships of his fleet. They were misfits and outcasts, ships that the regular Navy did not want. But they were also unpredictable, creative, and absolutely determined to prove themselves. "Tell the fleet to prepare for hyperspace jump," Yoon ordered. "We have a war to win." Captain Yoon Daewon looked at his 12 ships and felt proud instead of worried. Other officers might see old vessels and problem crews, but he saw something different. He saw potential. The HSS Resilience was his flagship, a destroyer that had been built 20 years ago. Its weapons were outdated and its armor was thin, but it was fast and could turn quickly. More importantly, its crew had been with him for 3 years, and they trusted each other completely. "Captain, the fleet is ready for your inspection," said Commander Oh Jisoo, his second in command. She was a tall woman with short black hair who never smiled during duty hours. Other captains had not wanted her because she asked too many questions and refused to follow orders that made no sense. Yoon walked through his ship, checking on each department. In the engine room, he found Engineer Bae Soo-jin working on something that definitely was not in the ship's manual. She was a small woman with oil stains on her uniform and wild ideas about how to make machines work better. "What are you building now, Bae?" Yoon asked. "Something that will make our weapons hit harder," she replied without looking up from her work. "The Navy said my designs were too dangerous to use, but dangerous for who?" Bae had been transferred to the 3rd Fleet after she had modified a patrol ship's engines to run 50% faster. The modification had worked perfectly, but it had also broken 3 safety regulations and made the ship's original engineer quit in fear. "Just make sure it does not blow up our own ship," Yoon said. "Where's the fun in that?" Bae grinned. Next, Yoon visited the communications center where Lieutenant Commander Choi Kyung-soo was training new crew members. Choi was a big man with scars on his hands from his time in Special Forces. He had been court-martialed for refusing to follow an order that would have gotten civilians killed during a pirate raid. "How are the new people doing?" Yoon asked. "They learn fast when they know their lives depend on it," Choi replied. "I'm teaching them things the Academy does not cover, like how to fight when everything goes wrong." "Everything will go wrong," Yoon agreed. "That's why we practice for it." On the bridge, he found Navigator Han Minji studying star charts and making calculations that hurt his head to look at. She was the youngest officer on the ship, barely 25, but she understood space and gravity in ways that amazed even experienced pilots. "What do you see, Han?" he asked. "The Ashanti system has an unstable star," she said, pointing to her charts. "It throws out solar storms every few days. Most navigators would avoid those storms, but we could use them." "How?" "Hide in them. The storms will mess up enemy sensors. But if we shield our ships the right way, we can still see and shoot." Her eyes lit up with excitement. "The Corvins will never expect anyone to be crazy enough to fly into a solar storm on purpose." This was why Yoon loved his crew. They did not think like normal military officers, they thought like humans. The rest of his fleet was equally unusual. The HSS Defiant was a converted cargo ship that now carried more weapons than some battleships. Its captain, Lee Je-hwan, had been demoted for arguing with admirals, but he knew how to make old ships fight like new ones. The HSS Stubborn was a prototype vessel that the Navy had built to test new technologies. Half of its systems were experimental, and the other half were held together with spare parts and hope. Captain Nam So-young had volunteered to command it because no one else wanted to risk their career on an untested ship. There were also 2 medical ships that Bae had secretly armed with hidden weapons, 3 patrol boats that were faster than anything else in the fleet, and a communications ship that could hack into enemy systems while pretending to surrender. For the next 5 days, as the fleet traveled through hyperspace toward Ashanti territory, Yoon trained his crews in ways that would have horrified normal military instructors. Instead of flying in neat formations, the ships practiced chaotic maneuvers that looked like they were completely out of control. Ships would suddenly turn in different directions, or speed up and slow down at random times. To an outside observer, it looked like the worst flying in the galaxy. "The key," Yoon explained to his captains during a video conference, "is that the enemy will try to predict what we do next. If we are unpredictable, their computers cannot calculate where to shoot." Choi trained boarding parties for close combat inside enemy ships. Instead of the formal fighting techniques taught at the academy, he showed them street fighting, improvised weapons, and how to use the ship's own systems against its crew. "Corvin ships are built for Corvin biology," he told his students. "Their doorways are the wrong height for us. Their controls are designed for their hands, not ours. We will use this." Bae worked on modifications that were definitely against regulations. She connected ship systems in new ways, overcharged weapons beyond their safety limits, and built devices that had no names because no one had ever thought to build them before. "The Corvins will scan our ships and think they know what our weapons can do," she explained to her engineering teams. "They will be wrong." Han studied the enemy's previous battles and found patterns that other tacticians had missed. The Corvins always fought the same way because it always worked. Their ships were stronger, their weapons hit harder, and their armor was thicker. They won by being superior in every way. That's also their weakness, Han told Yoon. They expect everyone to fight fair. They expect everyone to follow the same rules they do, but we don't have to. On the 5th day, the fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Ashanti system. What they saw made even Yoon's experienced crew gasp in shock. The Corvin fleet was enormous. 60 ships, each one the size of a city, hung in space around the Ashanti homeworld like giant metal predators. Green fire fell from their weapons onto the planet's surface, and Yoon could see explosions lighting up the night side of the world. "Sir," said Petty Officer Song Yunbi from her communications station, "I'm picking up Ashanti distress signals. Their defense fleet is retreating. They have maybe 10 ships left, and most of those are damaged." "What about civilian evacuation?" Yoon asked. "Some evacuation ships are trying to escape, but Corvin fighters are hunting them down." Yoon felt anger burn in his chest. The Corvins were not just conquering the Ashanti. They were destroying them. For fun. "Captain," said Commander Ojisu quietly, "our 12 ships against their 60. The math does not look good." "Since when do humans care about math?" Yoon replied. He opened a channel to his entire fleet. "All ships, this is Captain Yoon. I know what you're thinking. We are outnumbered 5-1. Our ships are older and smaller. By every logical measure, we should retreat." He paused, looking out at the enemy fleet that was destroying an entire civilization. "But we are not here because we are logical. We are here because it is the right thing to do. Those are not just alien ships down there. Those are people with families and dreams and hopes for the future. And no one else in the galaxy is willing to help them." The communication channel was silent for a moment. Then one by one his captains began to respond. HSS Defiant ready for battle. HSS Stubborn ready to show these Corvins what stubborn really means. All medical ships ready to save lives and kick ass. Yoon smiled. This was why he loved humans. When faced with impossible odds, they did not calculate the chances of success. They just got angry and started fighting. "All ships," he ordered, "attack Formation Delta. And remember, the Corvins think they know how space battles work. Let's teach them something new." Admiral Thexmore of the Corvin Empire stood 8 feet tall and looked like death wearing armor. His red eyes glowed in his skull-like face as he watched the human ships approach his massive fleet. He had conquered 12 star systems and destroyed countless civilizations. These tiny human vessels looked like insects trying to fight a dragon. "Admiral," said his tactical officer, "the human fleet consists of 12 ships. Most appear to be converted cargo vessels and outdated military ships. Our intelligence reports indicate humans are a primitive species with inferior technology." Thexmore laughed, a sound like grinding metal. 12 ships? I have 60. This will be over in minutes." He turned to his weapons officer. "Send patrol. Group 7 to destroy them. Do not waste the entire fleet on such weak prey." "Yes, Admiral. Shall we capture any survivors for interrogation?" "No. Make an example of them. When word spreads that even their allies cannot save them, other species will surrender without fighting." But Thexmore had made a mistake. He thought humans would fight like every other species he had conquered. He expected them to fly in straight lines, follow military protocols, and retreat when they started losing ships. Captain Yoon split his fleet into 3 groups, each one doing something that broke every rule of space combat. The first group, led by Commander Choi Kyung-soo in a converted cargo ship, began flying directly toward the Corvin patrol ships while broadcasting a surrender message. "Corvin Fleet, this is the human vessel HSS Defiant," Choi's voice came over the radio. "Our ships are damaged and our weapons are failing. We wish to surrender and discuss terms." The Corvin patrol leader was confused. His prey was giving up before the battle even started. This was too easy. "Human vessel, reduce your speed and prepare to be boarded." "Understood," Choi replied. "We are reducing speed now." But the Defiant did not slow down. Instead, it suddenly accelerated to ramming speed while 4 other cargo ships did the same thing. By the time the Corvins realized they had been tricked, it was too late. The Defiant smashed into the lead Corvin ship like a hammer hitting glass. The impact destroyed both vessels, but Choi and his crew had already escaped in small pods. The other cargo ships rammed the remaining patrol vessels before they could react. "What just happened?" Thexmore demanded from his flagship. "The humans. They destroyed their own ships to destroy ours," his tactical officer reported. 5 of our patrol ships are gone. This was not how space battles worked. Ships were supposed to try to survive, not throw themselves at the enemy like missiles. Thexmore felt the first touch of uncertainty. The second human group, led by Navigator Han, Minji, was doing something even stranger. Her 4 ships seemed to be flickering in and out of existence, appearing in one spot and then suddenly being somewhere else entirely. "They are using micro-jumps within the system," the Corvin sensor officer reported. "This should be impossible. The gravitational stress would tear their ships apart." But Han had calculated the jumps perfectly. She knew exactly how much stress the human ships could take, and she pushed them right to the edge. Her ships would appear behind Corvin vessels, fire their weapons, and then jump away before the enemy could shoot back. "It's like fighting ghosts," one Corvin captain reported. "They appear, attack, and vanish." The third group consisted of Yoon's own ship, the HSS Resilience, and 2 others. They seemed to be retreating toward the edge of the system, running away from the main Corvin fleet. Thexmore saw his chance. "All ships pursue the fleeing humans. I want their commander alive so he can watch his homeworld burn." It was exactly what Yoon had hoped for. He led 30 Corvin ships, including Thexmore's flagship, on a chase toward the system's star. They'd die. Human ships looked panicked, their formation breaking apart as they fled. "Sir, they're gaining on us," reported Commander Ojisu from the Resilience's bridge. "Perfect," Yoon replied. "Han, how much longer until the solar storm?" Navigator Han checked her calculations. 14 minutes, Captain. The star is about to release a massive burst of energy." "All ships, prepare for storm protocol," Yoon ordered. Engineer Bay had been working on this for days. She had modified the human ship's shields to work differently than any other ships in the galaxy. Instead of keeping radiation out, they would channel it around the ship while protecting the crew inside. It was incredibly dangerous, but it might work. The Corvin ships closed in, their weapons heating up to destroy the fleeing humans. That was when the solar storm hit. A wave of superheated plasma and electromagnetic energy exploded from the star, washing over both fleets. The Corvin ships, with their advanced technology and computer systems, were completely disabled. Their shields failed, their weapons went offline, and their navigation systems crashed. But the human ships kept flying. "How is this possible?" Thexmore roared, as his flagship drifted helplessly in space. "Their ships should be destroyed!" The answer was simple. Human ships were more primitive than Corvin vessels, but that made them tougher. Where Corvan ships used delicate computer systems, humans used simple mechanical controls. Where Corvan ships had complex energy shields, humans had thick metal armor. Bay's modifications had turned the solar storm from a weapon against them into a weapon for them. The storm's energy powered their shields while frying the enemy's electronics. All ships, begin boarding operations, Yoon ordered. This was where Choi's training paid off. His special forces teams, wearing radiation suits, flew small shuttles through the storm to the disabled Corvan ships. The Corvans were trapped inside their own vessels, unable to see or communicate with each other. The humans fought their way, through the Corvan ships, room by room. The enemy was bigger and stronger, but they were not used to fighting in cramped spaces against opponents who ignored all the rules of honorable combat. Choi's teams used the ship's own systems against their crews. They turned off life support in some areas, flooded others with coolant gas, and even used the ship's food dispensers to create slippery foam that made the Corvans fall down. "This is not how warriors fight," one captured Corvan officer protested. "We're not warriors," Choi replied as he tied the alien up with electrical cable. "We're humans. There's a difference." Within 2 hours, 15 Corvan ships had been captured. The rest were drifting powerless in space, their crews unconscious from radiation exposure. The mighty Corvan fleet that had destroyed 12 star systems had been crippled by 12 human ships and a solar storm. But Admiral Thexmore was not finished. As the storm began to fade and his systems came back online, he made a terrible decision. "If I cannot have this system, then no one can," he snarled. "All remaining ships, target the planet, maximum bombardment, kill everything that lives there." The 25 Corvan ships that were still functional turned their massive weapons toward the Ashanti homeworld. Each ship carried enough firepower to crack a continent in half. "Captain," said Ojisu urgently, "they're going to destroy the planet." Yoon looked at his small fleet. Half his ships were damaged, and his crews were exhausted from fighting. The smart thing to do would be to retreat and call for reinforcements, but that would mean watching an entire civilization die. "All ships," he ordered, "intercept those bombardment ships. Protect the planet." "Sir," Ojisu said quietly, "we cannot. Stop them all, there are too many." "Then we die trying," Yoon replied. "Signal the Ashanti evacuation ships. Tell them to run. We'll buy them as much time as we can." The remaining human ships, battered and running low on ammunition, flew toward the Corvan bombardment fleet. They were outnumbered 2-1 by ships that were bigger, stronger, and undamaged. But they were still human ships, crewed by humans who refused to give up. And sometimes that was enough. The Ashanti homeworld was beautiful from space. Blue oceans covered most of its surface, with green continents that looked like jewels scattered across the water. Cities glowed softly in the night, filled with billions of people who had no idea they were about to die. Captain Yoon watched the 25 Corvan ships position themselves for planetary bombardment and felt his heart break. Each ship carried weapons that could destroy entire cities with a single shot. His 6 remaining human vessels could not possibly stop them all. "Captain," said Engineer Bay over the radio from her damaged ship, "I'm reading massive energy buildup in their weapons. They'll start firing in 10 minutes. "How long do the Ashanti evacuation ships need?" Yoon asked. Navigator Han checked her screens. "At least 30 minutes to get the civilian transports to a safe distance. The planet has 12 billion people, but they can only evacuate maybe 1 million. Yoon closed his eyes for a moment, thinking of all the families on the planet below. Parents holding their children, old people saying goodbye to grandchildren they would never see again, young couples planning futures that would never come. All ships new mission, he said. We cannot destroy all the Corvin ships, but we can delay them. Every minute we keep them busy is another 1,000 lives saved. How do we delay 25 battleships with 6 small ships? Asked Captain Lee. Jae-won from the HSS Defiant. We get in their way, Yoon replied. Literally. It was the most desperate plan in military history. The human ships would fly directly into the paths of the Corvin bombardment beams, using their own hulls to block the shots meant for the planet. It was suicide, but it might work long enough to save some civilians. The first Corvin ship fired a beam of pure energy toward the planet's largest city. The HSS Stubborn, Captain Nam So-young's experimental vessel, flew directly into the beam's path. The energy hit the ship's shields and scattered in all directions like water hitting a rock. The Stubborn survived for almost 30 seconds before its shields failed and the ship exploded. But those 30 seconds were enough for 2 Ashanti evacuation ships to escape the city with 10,000 refugees. Stubborn is gone, reported Oh Jisoo quietly. Yoon felt each loss like a knife in his chest, but he could not stop now. Continue the mission. Another Corvin ship fired at a coastal city. This time, the HSS Mercy, one of Bay's armed medical ships, took the hit. The ship's doctor, Kim Young-ho, had refused to evacuate his patients, staying at his post until the EEAA end. The ship lasted 40 seconds before it was destroyed, but the city's spaceport managed to launch 3 more refugee ships. Admiral Thex Moore watched the human ships sacrifice themselves and felt something he had never experienced before: confusion. In all his years of conquest, no enemy had ever thrown away their ships just to save civilians. It made no tactical sense. Admiral, his weapons officer said, the humans are deliberately blocking our shots. Should we target them directly? No, Thexmore snarled. Let them waste their ships. We have more firepower than they have vessels. Continue the bombardment. But the humans were not just blocking shots randomly. Navigator Han, flying her ship from the bridge of the damaged HSS Resilience, had calculated the optimal positions to cause maximum delay. Each sacrifice was planned to save the most lives possible. Commander Choi, leading a boarding party on a captured Corvin ship, found a different way to help. His team fought their way to the ship's weapon control room and began sabotaging the bombardment systems from the inside. I do not know how to turn off their weapons, he told his team as laser fire filled the corridor around them. But I know how to break things. His soldiers used their knowledge of human engineering to damage the alien systems in ways the Corvins could not quickly repair. They poured water into electrical panels, jammed mechanical parts with pieces of metal, and even used the ship's own tools to create short circuits. It was crude and simple, but it worked. 3 Corvin ships stopped firing as their weapons overloaded and shut down. Meanwhile, Engineer Bay was attempting something that should have been impossible. Using 2 captured Corvin ships and her own damaged vessel, she was trying to create a planetary shield generator. The mathematics do not work, she told her engineering team as they welded alien technology together with human spare parts. Corvin shield generators are designed for single ships, not entire planets. But maybe if we link enough of them together. It was like trying to stop a waterfall with a fishing net, but Bay had never let impossibility stop her before. She connected power systems that were never meant to work together, overcharged generators beyond their safety limits, and used human ingenuity to make alien technology do things its creators had never imagined. The result was a shimmering energy field that appeared over the planet's north pole. It was weak and unstable, but it was there. "It is working!" shouted Lieutenant Park Minho from the shield control station. "I have partial coverage over the northern continent." The shield could not stop direct hits from the Corvan weapons, but it could deflect glancing blows and reduce the power of the bombardment. Cities that should have been completely destroyed were only half destroyed. It was not much, but it meant millions more people had time to escape. Captain Yoon, down to just his own ship and 2 others, made a decision that would have been called insane by any military court. He was going to ram Admiral Thexmore's flagship. "Captain, that ship is 10 times our size," Ojisu protested. "The collision will destroy us." "Maybe," Yoon replied, "but it will also destroy their command ship. Without Thexmore giving orders, the other Corvan ships might stop fighting." It was a desperate hope, but it was all they had left. The HSS Resilience, its hull cracked and its weapons empty, turned toward the massive Corvan flagship and accelerated to maximum speed. Thexmore saw the small human ship approaching and laughed. "What do they think they can accomplish? Their tiny vessel cannot even scratch our armor." But Yoon was not planning to scratch the armor. He was planning to hit the flagship's weapon ports, where the ship's thick armor was weakest. If he could damage the main bombardment cannons, it might stop the attack long enough for the evacuation to finish. "All crew to escape pods," Yoon ordered. "This is going to hurt." "Captain," Ojisu said firmly, "I am staying with you." "That is an order, Commander." "Then it is an order I am refusing to follow, sir." One by one, the rest of the bridge crew made the same choice. Navigator Han, Communications. Officer Song, even young Lieutenant Park, they all stayed at their posts. "If we die," Han said with a small smile, "at least we die as humans, protecting people we have never met, because it is the right thing to do." The HSS Resilience struck Admiral Thexmore's flagship like a bullet hitting a tank. The impact destroyed both ships' weapon systems and sent both vessels spinning out of control through space. In the sudden silence that followed, something unexpected happened. The remaining Corvan ships stopped firing. Without their admiral's orders, the Corvan captains did not know what to do. They had been trained to follow commands, not to think for themselves. Some tried to continue the bombardment, but without coordination. Their efforts were weak and scattered. The Ashanti evacuation fleet used the confusion to escape. Hundreds of ships carrying millions of refugees fled toward the outer system, where other alien civilizations had finally arrived to help. Captain Yoon floated in the wreckage of his ship, his body broken, but his spirit intact. Through the static of his damaged radio, he could hear the voices of Ashanti civilians thanking the humans who had saved their lives. It had not been a perfect victory. Billions had died, and most of the human fleet was destroyed. But it had been enough. An entire species would survive because 12 human ships had refused to give up. As rescue ships approached the wreckage, Yoon smiled and closed his eyes. They had done something impossible. They had turned humanity's greatest weakness, their refusal to abandon those in need, into their greatest strength. Captain Yoon woke up in a hospital bed that was too long for his human body. The ceiling above him was covered in strange symbols that hurt his eyes to look at, and the air smelled like flowers and metal. He tried to sit up and immediately regretted it as pain shot through his chest. "Please do not move," said a familiar voice. Ambassador Velthar stood beside his bed, looking much healthier than when they had first met. The alien's wounds had healed, and its 4 eyes were bright with something Yoon had never seen in an alien before. deep gratitude. How long was I unconscious? Yoon asked. 3 weeks, Velthar replied. You had internal bleeding, broken ribs, and a concussion. The Ashanti medical team said you were lucky to be alive. My crew, most survived. Commander O and Navigator. Han are in the next room, arguing with doctors about when they can return to duty. Engineer Bay is in the workshop trying to improve our medical equipment. Yoon smiled. That sounded like his people. The battle? He asked. Velthar's expression grew serious. The Corvan fleet retreated after you destroyed their flagship. Without Admiral Thexmore giving orders, their captains could not decide what to do. We estimate that 4 million Ashanti civilians escaped because of your actions. 4 million lives. It was not the entire population, but it was something. It was enough to keep the Ashanti species alive. There is something else you should know. Velthar continued. News of the battle has spread across the galaxy. Everyone is talking about the humans who fought 60 ships with 12 and won. We did not win, Yoon said quietly. We lost most of our fleet. You saved my people when no one else would help, Velthar replied. In our language, that is the only victory that matters. 2 days later, Yoon was strong enough to attend a meeting in the Ashanti government building. He sat at a table with Ambassador Velthar and several other Ashanti officials, listening to reports from across the galaxy. The Zephyrian Alliance has requested a formal meeting with Earth's government, said Velthar. They want to discuss a mutual defense treaty. And the Crystalline Confederacy? Yoon asked. They are offering to share advanced technology in exchange for human military advisors. It seems they want to learn how you fight. Yoon almost laughed. A month ago, these same alien civilizations had refused to help the Ashanti because they were too weak to be worth saving. Now they wanted to ally with the humans who had proved that strength was not just about having big ships and powerful weapons. There is more, Velthar continued. We have received distress calls from 3 other species. The Corvan Empire has attacked them, and they are asking for human assistance. What kind of assistance? They want ships like yours, crews like yours. They want humans who will fight for them the way you fought for us. Yoon felt a heavy weight settle on his shoulders. The galaxy was looking to humanity for something they had never provided before. Hope for the weak and protection for those who could not protect themselves. A week later, Yoon stood on the observation deck of a new human space station in Ashanti territory. Through the transparent metal, he could see ships from dozens of alien species coming and going. They were refugees, diplomats, traders, and scientists, all drawn by the news of what humanity had done. The station is almost finished, said Director Kim Taiho, who had arrived from Earth with a construction fleet. We are calling it Hope Station. It will be humanity's first permanent base outside our own territory. And the new ships? Yoon asked. Kim smiled. The 3rd Expeditionary Fleet is being rebuilt, bigger than before, but with the same crews and the same mission. We are also constructing a new class of vessel based on Engineer Bay's designs. What are you calling them? Resilience-class ships, Kim replied. Named after your destroyer. They are designed specifically for humanitarian missions across the galaxy. The 2 men watched as a group of Ashanti children, survivors of the bombardment, played in the station's park area. Their laughter echoed through the corridors, a sound of life continuing despite everything that had tried to destroy it. Director, Yoon said quietly, why did you really send the 3rd Fleet? You could have sent nothing and claimed it was too dangerous. The galaxy would have understood. Kim was quiet for a long moment. "Do you know what the other alien species call us behind our backs?" he finally asked. "No. The soft ones. They think we are weak because we care about people we have never met. They think emotions make us inferior soldiers." "And what do you think?" Kim smiled. "I think they are about to learn that our emotions are not our weakness. They are our greatest weapon." 3 months later, Admiral Yoon Daewon, he had been promoted again, stood on the bridge of the HSS New Resilience, the first of the new humanitarian fleet. His crew was larger now, but it still included all his old friends. Bae was head engineer, Han was chief navigator, and Oh was his second-in-command. "Admiral," said Communications Officer Song, "we have received 3 new distress calls in the past hour. The Bellari Republic is under attack by pirates. The Threnody system is facing a plague outbreak. And the Valish Confederacy is asking for help with refugee transport. Which one do we respond to first?" asked Oh Yoon, looked at his crew. These humans who had volunteered to risk their lives for strangers they would never meet. "All of them," he said. "We split the fleet. 3 missions, 3 groups. We help everyone we can." "Sir," Han said with a grin, "that is completely against standard military doctrine. No admiral would split their force like that." "Good thing we are not standard military," Yoon replied. As the human ships separated to begin their missions, Yoon reflected on how much had changed. The galaxy had learned that when you asked humanity for help, you did not get their weakest fleet. You got their most human fleet. And across the stars, species that had lived in fear for generations were learning a new word in the human language: hope. It was a concept that many aliens found difficult to understand, but they were beginning to see its power. The Corvins had been the strongest military force in the galaxy, with the biggest ships and the most advanced weapons. But they had been defeated by 12 old human vessels crewed by misfits and outcasts, not because the humans were stronger, but because they were human. Years later, when historians wrote about the Battle of Ashanti, they would call it the day that changed galactic civilization. It was the day the galaxy learned that sometimes the weakest fleet is actually the strongest, because it carries something that cannot be measured in firepower or armor. The unbreakable human spirit that refuses to let good people die while there is still something that can be done to save them. And in the depths of space, where new crises arose every day, human ships continued to answer the call. Not because they were the strongest or the fastest or the most advanced, but because they were human, and humans did not abandon those in need. The galaxy would never be the same